The places of worship should open with the following precautions: individual prayers or confessions with priests or counseling with the necessary SOPs. Those are all right. When somebody is coming to confess his sins to the priest, there are few of them, they can, that one may not be a problem. Prayers and fellowships whose numbers do not exceed 70, and by observing all the other SOPs, we think these ones are safe. Night prayers and transnights are, however, not allowed. Night prayers and transnights, we don't allow those. The regular large gatherings of prayers and preachings of Sundays and Fridays will be considered at a later stage, depending on how the disease will be evolving. But the rule of the number of 70 and not more can be used on Fridays and Sundays. So that rule of not more than 70 can actually be used on a number of days. You can have some on Monday, another group on Tuesday, and Friday, as long as the numbers are 70. There should be no Sunday school for children. Let the enemy first go away before the children are involved in this congregating. They say
I've not been taking this juice, but my daughter just brought me juice. I've not been taking this kind of passion juice, but for the president, thumbs up. Nyudewa katunda. Nzikakanye abantu bagenda kusinza mukama. The first and foremost, the president of the Republic of Uganda has done great. To me, he's a real ideal. Letting people to go and worship. The Bible says 2 or 3 gather together in my name. Will I hear from heaven? Will I come down and be amidst them? So if he has given us 70, he has already opened up a church. I appreciate that. But there is a challenge here, whereby you see the president has opened the door, looked inside, locked the door, and left the key inside.
What do you mean by that?
There are people who have 10,000 people, like Ron Makabai. There are people who have 15,000 people, like Zoe Fellowship of Prophet Elvis Mbonye. There are people who have masses, like Rubega. There are people who have like Pastor Mujingo and other men of God who have masses. We're not talking about just people. We have masses. When you talk about 70 people, you're talking about just Court of Anansha, the department. To me, that is a mass choir from our church. So am I going to preach just the mass choir? What will the congregation do?
I want you to take always step.
I see a difference, but I see a challenge as well. I can't be adamant and say, thank you, Mr. President. I want to remind him with his scientist that there is an issue here that you need to take care of. There are people who have masses. You have not talked about them. How are these people going to worship? How are these people going to wake up early in the morning and lift their hands to God when they're coming? Think about someone who has 5,000. Let's put it at 2,000. And they have to pray 70. How are you going to do it? Number 2, how are you going to satanize the place? Unless you're telling us to go in the most field, to go in the stadiums, they open up Nambode, and people start going praying Nambode. If you do that, Prophet Elvis Mbonye will go to Nambode. If you do that, pastors will go up to the Nambode. So to me, he opened the door, looked inside, shut the door, and then left the key inside.
Okay. 70 people in church. Can't you have us in
Having 70 people in church is not a problem.
Then what's the problem?
It's the masses of the people we have. It's okay for Namirembe Cathedral to have 70 people. Because anyway, I don't know if they have those people every service. It's okay for Rubaga Cathedral. You can take that, you can just go and find out on every Sunday. Because in Niger's religion, what they have got today is old people going to church. Young people are coming to the Pentecostals, are going to Bukarango, to Catholic charismatic churches. No, tell me, how are you going to handle Bukarango itself? So when you talk about a worship, it means that government has given us a mode of of course, of worship. And that is completely there, and I think it is good news for 7 people to do. As I said, Bible says 2 or 3 gathered in my name, I'll hear from heaven. God will come and of course I'll be a ministers. We appreciate that. But you must think about the people who have massive churches. And that's the challenge of leadership in the hands of government, of national resistance movement, led by the President of the Republic of Uganda. He must think with his scientists. Number 2, you must call people, stakeholders, to ask them, you who have masses, how are you to do it? In our situation, of course, nothing's going to be happening. We'll keep on looking on. We've been keep on looking on. We've been looking on, regardless of few who betrayed us, who did not tell the president the right facts of the things. And of course, the president is very good. The president has no problem. You know, I tell you, I hate NRM, but I love the president. Sagara NRM. Sagara NRM. Nenjagara Mr. Museveni. Afanana katunda kan. Musajja mulungi. He's a good man. But you see, when he comes every time, you mark his statements. The scientist advised me. The committee advised me. The president has a clear mind of what is being advised on. Oh, yeah, through structures. And he has been advised on that. Yeah. So to me, yes, that is what it is. And I think the president has played his part. It's high time also, as Citizen Republic of Uganda and stakeholders, to talk to these people. They need to come and talk to us. Not through Intelligence Council. The people who don't subscribe to Intelligence Council, they need to hear our voice. And because we are illegitimate citizens of the Republic of Uganda, we deserve to be heard. It is our right, it's our freedom, it's our thinking, it's a freedom that national resistance movement subscribes to defend the rights, to protect the property and the human rights of every Ugandan from this country.
What would be your idea or radish for the...
It is high time everyone drops his ego. Watoto, Miracle Center, Brother Ronnie Makabai, Prophet Elvis Mbonya, and other great men of God that I have seen, Apostle Rubega and others, to come together and have a unity. And then after we solve this problem, each one of us shall go back to his cocoon.
What problem are you going for?
This problem of masses, it's a serious problem at hand. And you can't neglect it because we're going to elections. And these guys are communicating to their people. I don't want the government to feel adamant. Neither advisors to the President of the Republic of Uganda to tell people that these pastors are not in touch with their people. If they come to, I want 1 million people to come to church. My agenda is in one day in Africa to have a church that has 1 million people. So we're not going to drop our people because we are going to think. Let me tell you something. Time is going to come when we're going to go back to normal. But the things of the faith are very complicated. They have their complex and dynamics. And I think the President of the Republic of Uganda, as a father of this nation, he has at heart the church. I know that for sure, because he's there to fight for the freedom of everyone. But mafias, there are mafias in government. The mafias who are introducing the app to book to go to church. Those mafias are there. We know them. But when I came Mondo and I came on TV, they all disappeared. They all disappeared because we had now got to their names, everything. We were going to tag them. They are public servants. We will go for them massively. Public court will work on them. Okay, they want to throw the president. These are mafias who want the president to be hated.
To many,
it is high time pastors unite. There are things that will bring the church together. Such kind of issues are causes that should break their ego, their pride, and come together. Of course, regardless of other pastors who have lies and say they are massive graves, those kind of, I'm not talking about those ones. But the likes of Pastor Robert Kayanja, the people of like Makerere University, Makerere Full Gospel Church, the Body of Christ that has masses of the churches, Watoto Church. How are you going to handle Watoto Church? They're going to be looking at you. But again, I want to tell the president that in your scientists, there are mafias who want you to have a collision with the churches. Trust me, the churches may not be economically contributing towards this government to be sustained. They may not be paying the taxes that you want them to be paid. Actually, you are waiving off even some taxes to these churches. But mind you, these are people who speak to these masses and people listen to. Because the way the political system was created in Uganda, the Catholics are DP, the Protestants are UPC, and Balokoli, they subscribe to Museveni at the group. So when you talk about the President of the Republic of Uganda, he has a good will and a good heart. So you don't neglect all these sectors. And let the people in Intelligence Council don't lie to you that they're actually unison with everybody who is in faith, believing, business and church.
you think?
Lukoma, I've already said I'm grateful for the 70. We are grateful. Anyway, he has even given us more than what we need. 2 or 3 gathered in my name, I'll be present. I mean, already it is already available. We are grateful. But we are saying there's a challenge, Mr. President. You are leaving a bigger challenge. You have opened up for smaller churches, not bigger churches. They are massive churches that the president needs to have an ear to. And those masses are listening and they're watching us. From Kabare, from Kisoro to Arua. They are churches that are mega. Let me tell you, that are down on the ground and you need them. I personally have got a data of pastors, of 50,000 pastors, evangelists, apostles, and all that. I have a database for them. All their phone numbers, I have them. But these people, mind you, we have all the WhatsApp groups that we've been having up and other groups of other social media groups. And these people, we hear their views. It's so different by the reality. And what is the reality? The reality is that there are massive churches that needs attention. And if you open the small ones and you don't open the big ones, then you're wasting energy and you're wasting a lot of people's times.
Can't this church?
There are no priorities in worship. Everyone is welcome in the house of God. Poor, rich, everyone is entitled to come. They have a right to come and worship God in God's house. So you have a 10,000. It's a paradox. It's a mind-blowing that the president has to solve. And it has to solve. Unless it's going to be like Boda Boda. All SOPs have been broken. I can remind you that. People no longer give their national ID to go in a Boda Boda. Show me how many Boda Bodas have this spray for washing their hands. That's why Kampala has championed. Because it's more busy, it's a business district, and apart from that, it has not been given, it has failed to follow the SOPs. So many things are going to fail like any other things have failed. I can't tell you from here, from my home here, that I'm going to go on the Boda Boda, and the Boda Boda man will ask me, hey, can I wash my hands? He said, the sina mazimvako, ngajewa. Sina sabuni, mujewa.
So, conclusively, what is your view on the situation regarding the president's directives?
Thumbs up to the president for opening up churches. But something is in the corner asking you. You've not opened it fully. Because there are those who have 50,000, 20,000, 10,000 people who are worshippers and who are going to worship God. So you must solve that paradox.
Number one, no politician, whether president or in any capacity, has the power to dictate how we should worship, how places of worship should operate. In the very first place, they had no authority to close the churches. Therefore, they don't have the power to open the churches. Even if they open them, they do not describe to us how we are going to worship God. We can only worship the way the Lord tells us and how the holy books prescribe how to worship God. He has never told us to worship based on state directives. Under no circumstance, the Bible never gave any provision for when we should suspend worship because of a disease. Suspending worship because of a disease is actually a demonstration that we do not uphold what the motto of our country says, that for God and my country. Meaning that the act of the president in opening up churches and closing the churches and acting on the advice of scientists, he exalted science above God. He did not give ultimate consideration to who exactly God is. So the actual perspective of the Lord is that, number one, worship the way he tells you to worship. Number two, no politician can prescribe the way you're supposed to worship. But also the Bible says that we should be able to resist. We should be able to resist this kind of darkness that the politicians wants to put the church into. He says, resist the devil in faith. So we have to resist in faith. No, there is no step. When he closed, they did not close only 70 people. The churches, the places of worship had more than 70 people. So there is no way. It's actually absolutely nonsensical. It's extremely foolish for actually to see these so-called scientists who are advising the president or misadvising the president to open for only 70 people. What is the difference then? All right? Is it in terms of management? Has the Lord ever, the stand has never been science. The stand is what he says, never give up the culture and the habit of gathering together. He didn't say gathering together only 70 people. We are going to worship the way the Lord tells us to worship. not the way the president tells us to worship. The Lord has never told us to worship as 70 people. We shall do exactly what the Lord tells us to do, not what the president says. He's not above God. He's not above God. His perspective, especially if it disregards the perspective of the Lord, is extremely irrelevant. Anything to do with matters of our God, the president, cabinet, ministry of health, any scientist, no matter whatever they are completely irrelevant. There is no point in us. There's no point in us regarding what a head of state says against what God says. He comes and he goes, God stays forever. Likewise, our faith and our belief, whether you be Muslim, Catholic, Anglican, the faith remains, and it stands above way above what the president says.
So practically, what?
The only practical thing is what the Lord tells us to do, which is to worship in the way He has told us to worship. He has never told us to worship by leaving out children,
That one I've understood.
all right, and the
Are you
elders.
going to gather same?
I think we shall be able to communicate our position as a ministry on what we are going to do. But the most basic standard I have told you is that we shall worship the way the Lord tells us to worship. We shall only follow that perspective. Nothing else, nothing else. Whatever they're saying it doesn't apply to us. It doesn't. It only applies to those who want to be politically correct. We never seek to be politically correct. We only seek to be relevant to heaven, not to any man. If it is for God and my country, we shall raise God above anything else. Our faith has to apply all the time. He never told us to suspend faith when a pandemic comes or persecution. He told us to stand in faith at all times, not when a president or somebody is scared.
How?
Well, it wasn't our compliance was only because we are law-abiding citizens. But that was because you closed. When you open, you don't dictate to us. The very way, I can throw it back to you, that when you close the churches, you didn't close only 70 people. So why at opening do you put limitations? Churches ought to be opened unconditionally. Unconditionally. No condition should ever be put when you're opening up a place of worship. After what you've already messed up in. It was a big mistake. It was error. It was blasphemy for you to close the churches. It was fake. It was silly. It was wrong. All right. Irrespective of who it was. Now opening up still, you can't again come back and you want to give us this sort of carrot and stick thing. Why don't you open up unconditionally? Are we sort of saying that COVID is waiting at the doorsteps of churches? How come there were primaries and all this nonsense and everything? But what's up with the places of worship? Yeah.
To me, I think the president is working in the interest of the government. The Bible says every leadership comes from God. As Christians, we are instructed to obey. We're instructed to follow. We're instructed to hear and heard the President of the Republic of Uganda or any leader that is before us. But in the same time, in the interest of our faith, there are lots of things that we have missed. Number one, I don't expect any good leader to advise the president what to do today. Why? They compromise their faith. Yeah, they compromise their faith. They sold their birthright to the President of the Republic of Uganda. Every time you go to State House and you have no more authority to look in the eyes of the President, tell him, Mr. President, what you're doing is wrong. You already sold off your soul to the state and you not have a right to do it. Every time they invite you for a dinner, it is a good courtesy. But if that dinner can shut your mouth, if that dinner cannot give you the ambience cannot give you right to say, Mr. President, I think here you're going wrong, then that is not leadership. That is something else. To me, a leadership should be heard, should have a positive criticism, and the President of the Republic of Uganda should learn that there are people who love him genuinely, like Mondo. I've supported the president for the last 32 years, but I'm the only preacher who can wake up in the morning and talk to the president and say, Mr. President, I respect you, I love you, sir, but there are mafias in the corner who want to make you. The president is a good man. He has a good heart for this country. But the mafia group that is around there, the cartel, the civil servants who are meant to be helping the president to have a bridge between the public and the presidency, completely have made that difficult for him. Lastly, every time there are crises in the government is when the mafias, the civil servants who are in the system, eat. They create systems. They create wise. They create issues. The mafia system that works in this country, most of you don't know it. That's the problem with you. It creates problem in order to have an income. It creates a problem for money to flow. Every time they go dry, they want to cause an issue that will bring money into their pockets. So these are mafia system. The president is fighting. Why do you think he says, hey, why? Because there's a corrupt tendencies that in this country. And the mafia system, that's what it does. It thrives better when there is a crisis. Because the anti-corruption unit of Nakarem has gone around them, now they eat through crisis. Makerere University has just been banned. Are you aware about that? The Ivory Tower. Hey, but do you think that it was just banned? It's just got fire. I'm not convinced. I don't know. I can't go on record that somebody burnt it. But now, the contractors are happy.